My name is Kate. I am 20 years old and have spent my entire life in a small village called Willow Creek, located in the heart of Kansas. Here, time drags slowly. The roads are dusty, the houses are old, and the locals' conversations are endless. Sometimes it seems like nothing changes in this place, as if the 21st century has not arrived, but rather the same times when my grandparents first met at a fair. My mom is a doctor. She has dedicated her life to working in a community hospital in a neighboring town after divorcing my dad. She has remained alone and has tried her best to provide for me. I enrolled in a university in the nearby city of Lawrence, studying part-time and commuting there several times a week. During the day, I help my mother with household chores, and in the evenings, I close myself in my room, dreaming of a life that truly belongs to me. But lately, I've noticed that my mother has changed. She has become thoughtful, often staying late at work and speaking softly on the phone, as if she fears I might overhear her. One evening, just as I was getting ready for bed, she unexpectedly announced that her acquaintance, Jake, would be moving in with us. "He's a good person, Kate. He'll help us," my mom said, avoiding my gaze. I didn't care much. Life in the village was boring, and any event seemed new. A week later, Jake appeared on our doorstep, tall, broad-shouldered, with short stubble and a calm gaze. He spoke little, but there was something mesmerizing in his voice. "I hope we get along," he said, placing his small bag by the entrance. Jake quickly settled into our home. He was polite, attentive, helped my mom with chores, and sometimes drove her to work in his old car. It seemed like he just existed nearby, and over time I got used to his presence. But one night something changed. I woke up feeling strange, as if the air in the house had become heavy and tense. My heart raced, although there was no reason to be anxious. Quietly getting out of bed, I went to the kitchen for a glass of water and froze. Jake was standing by the window, smoking and staring into the darkness. The moonlight outlined his silhouette, making him almost unreal. "Can't sleep?" he asked without turning. I swallowed. "Just wanted some water." He slowly turned to me, as if studying me with his gaze. "Sometimes nights can be like that," he said quietly. "When it feels like the world stops, and you're left alone with your thoughts." I felt my fingers tremble around the glass of water. It was the first time I caught myself thinking that his presence disturbed me, but not in a bad way. From that night on, I began looking at Jake differently, not as my mom's friend but as a man. The more I studied his calmness, the stronger the strange, unexplored feeling grew inside me. But back then I had no idea that soon this story would take a completely different turn. After that late-night conversation, something within me shifted. I found myself watching Jake more often, noticing how he rolled up his shirt sleeves, how he squinted while reading the newspaper, how he inhaled before answering a question. I had never felt anything like this before. Jake was almost twice my age. Calm, reasonable, always reserved. It seemed that no emotion could truly affect him. This only made it more intriguing. One day, my mom left for work earlier than usual, and I found myself alone with Jake. I was sitting at the kitchen table, lazily flipping through the pages of my textbook. Jake walked into the room wearing just a t-shirt and jeans, freshly out of the shower. Drops of water were running down his neck, leaving wet trails on the fabric. "Studying?" he asked, glancing at my books. "Yeah, but it's not going well today." I closed the textbook and stood up to make myself some tea. He smirked. "Sometimes it's worth changing the scenery, taking a walk to breathe some fresh air. Want to join me for a walk?" The words slipped out, and although Jake raised an eyebrow slightly, he didn't say anything, just nodded. We left the village. The road was deserted, the air fresh, filled with the scent of herbs. I walked a little ahead, feeling his gaze on the back of my head. "Do you always look so intently?" I asked without turning around. "I think you already know the answer," he replied. My cheeks flushed. In the evening, my mom stayed late at work, and we were left alone again. I was sitting in the living room, scrolling through my phone, but my mind was preoccupied with other things. Jake was sitting by the fireplace, pensively fiddling with something. The firelight reflected on his face, accentuating the sharp lines of his cheekbones. "What are you thinking about?" asked. He looked up. "And you?" I froze. Why did he move closer? "Because you're not who you want to appear to be," he said. I didn't know how to respond. Inside, something stung, as if he could see right through me. "And who am I?" asked. Jake leaned closer, his voice lowering. "Someone who wants to know what comes next." My heart raced. We stood like that for a few moments. I could have stepped back, put some distance between us, but I didn't. Jake slowly brushed his fingers across my cheek. His touch was light, but it sent shivers down my spine. "This is wrong," I whispered, yet I didn't move away. His lips were close, and I felt the warmth of his breath. I knew that if I allowed this to happen, there would be no turning back, but did I want to go back? The next morning my mom noticed nothing, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I had stepped into the unknown, and I liked it. After that night, an invisible tension hung in the air. Jake and I became more careful to avoid each other in front of my mom. But as soon as she left, that quiet current reappeared between us, barely noticeable but impossible to ignore. Every accidental touch seemed like a test of the boundaries we had already crossed. One evening my mom left for a night shift and wouldn't return until morning. "Don't miss each other," she said, tying her scarf in front of the mirror. I stood at the door, nodding, while my heart pounded so loudly that it felt like Jake could hear it. When the door closed behind her, the house became unusually quiet. Jake sat in a chair reading a book. I walked closer and sat across from him. "What are you reading?" I asked. He looked up, slightly smirking. "Want to join me?" I slowly nodded. He patted the armrest next to him, and without thinking I sat down. At first we were indeed just reading, but gradually I began to sense him beside me. His warmth, his breath, his scent. Then he suddenly closed the book. "Kate," he said. I looked at him. "Do you understand what you're doing?" I stayed silent. He reached out, slowly tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "If we cross this line, there will be no way back." I understood, but that was precisely what I wanted. We spent that night in a way we shouldn't have. His hands, his voice, his touches. Everything felt different from what I expected. Deeper, sharper, more forbidden. The next morning when my mom returned, I tried to act normally. But inside everything had changed. 2 weeks passed. Jake and I lived in this strange, tense rhythm. During the day we pretended nothing was happening, while at night everything was different. I knew it couldn't last forever. One evening during dinner my mom said, "Jake was offered a promotion. If I accept, we will have to move to the city." I froze. Jake slowly put down his fork. "That's good news," he said calmly. But I felt everything within me clench. Moving meant the end of everything. Later that night I found Jake in the garage. He was smoking, looking at the dark sky. "Are you going to leave with us?" I asked. He slowly exhaled the smoke. "Do you want me to go?" I stepped closer. "You already know the answer." He looked at me. "Then we'll decide together." I didn't know what he meant, but I felt something unpredictable awaited us. The next days passed in strange uncertainty. Mom began preparing for the move, discussing details, searching for housing in Kansas City where she planned to work. I just didn't know what to do. Jake hardly spoke about it. He listened, nodded, but I saw something change inside him. One evening, when my mom went to a neighbor's, I entered his room. "You don't want to leave, do you?" I asked, closing the door behind me. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, arms crossed. "It's your mother. She gave me a roof over my head, trusts me. You're no longer just her friend," Jake said, looking at me. "Do you understand that?" He didn't answer. Then I stepped forward, another step, feeling that same electricity flare between us again. I knew it was wrong, but it no longer stopped me. That night everything was different. Firmer, deeper, sharper, as if we both understood that time was running out. But in the morning something changed. Jake left the house earlier than usual. I waited for him to return by lunchtime, but he never did. I wandered through the rooms, listening to the silence, trying to understand what was happening. When my mom came back, I already knew. He wasn't coming back. "Where's Jake?" she asked, placing her bag on the table. I clenched my fists. "He left." She frowned. "But why?" I didn't answer because I didn't know. 2 days passed. I didn't sleep, didn't eat, I just waited. Then I found his note. "Kate, I can't go with you." Wrong. Otherwise, I would have stayed. Everything inside me broke, but I wasn't going to give up. I would find him no matter the cost. I couldn't simply leave everything as it was. Jake left without saying a word, but I knew this wasn't the end. All night I lay awake, replaying moments, our conversations, our touches in my mind. He couldn't just disappear. I decided to find him. I knew where to look. He had a friend, Matt, in the city who he sometimes met for business. I had heard him mention Matt in conversations with my mom. In the morning, when my mom left for work, I gathered my things and drove to Kansas City. The day was hot. I walked the street, carefully scanning the signs until I found what I was looking for. A garage. This was where Matt worked. I entered, feeling my heart race. "Good day," I said, approaching the counter. A tall man with dirty hands looked up. "How can I help you?" he asked. "I need Jake." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Who are you to him?" I swallowed. He looked at me, then sighed. "He doesn't want to be found." But I wasn't going to leave. "Where is he?" asked. Matt lit a cigarette, looking away. "He left. He wanted to leave everything in the past." I shook my head. He couldn't just run away. Sometimes people do what they have to. I understood the conversation was pointless, but just as I was about to turn away, he said, "He lives in an apartment on the outskirts. But if you go there, be prepared to hear things you don't want to." I knew what he meant, but I didn't care. When I reached the address, the sun was already setting. Jake opened the door. There was no surprise on his face. "I knew you would come." I was silent, stepped inside, and closed the door behind me. We stared at each other for a long time. "Why did you leave?" finally asked. Jake ran a hand over his face, as if trying to collect his thoughts. "Because it's the right thing to do." "For whom?" He didn't answer. I stepped closer. "You can lie to yourself, but not to me." He took a deep breath. "Kate." I touched his hand and at that moment understood what I already knew. That this night was unlike any other. Not passion, not desire, just the understanding that we could not live without each other. In the morning I woke up to the sound of him making coffee. I walked into the kitchen, wrapped in his shirt. He looked at me and then said, "If you're ready for this." I smiled. I have never been more certain. We left a week later, without a plan, without fear, simply knowing that together we could face anything.